Alright, so this is Chapter 1, Lesson 3, Distance Between 2 Points. This first definition is pretty easy. All it says is the distance between 2 points is how far it is. And it gives you a formula here. The thing I want to point out in the formula, if you look, both are absolute value. The reason is distance can never be negative. So real quick, if I gave these coordinates, say this was -2 and this was 8, really all you're doing is counting. So 0 would be here, so how far is that? That's a distance of 2, that's a distance of 8, so altogether that is a distance of 10. The thing you want to remember is it must be positive, Okay, what about in the coordinate plane? Well, then we have this formula. Again, one thing I want to note here, it doesn't matter the order of these x's. What does matter is whatever x you put first here, the corresponding y has to go first here. You want to be careful in doing this using the calculator too, because sometimes it's real easy to make mistakes. And then the next formula you have here is midpoint. And all you do to get midpoint is take the average. You take the value of A and the value of B, you add them together and divide by 2. Just take the average. That's where the midpoint is. Then we talk about this term segment bisector. All a segment bisector is something that goes through the middle of a segment. So if PQ is a segment, this is a segment bisector. This line is a segment bisector. It goes through the middle. Now, how do I know it goes through the middle? And this is real important here. The reason I know it goes through the middle are these two little marks here. That means the segment part from here to here is equal to the segment part from here to here, or congruent. Remember, we did that in Lesson 2, congruent. They're the same length. So here we have some problems. So I'll do some quick examples here. So we have a new notation here. Whenever you see a segment without anything above it, that means it wants the measure or the length of the segment. So I go from X to Y. Now one thing you can do is just count, but I always just think about how far is it. From -1 to 0 is 1. From 0 to 7 is 7. So 7 and 1 would be 8. So that is a distance of 8. Okay, what about if it is in a coordinate plane? So let's do problem number 4 here. So here is where I need to use the distance formula. So I'm going to work it out here. Now again, it doesn't matter which x you put first. So here I'm going to put 4 first. So 4 minus 9. So this is like my x1. This is like my x2. So again, the order of the x's doesn't matter. Squared plus, what does matter now is my y. That has to be first in this group. So 9 minus, and then this one right here is going to be my y2, 0 squared. Now again, all this is under square root. So here's what I would advise you to do. Simplify each part. So what you can do is type just this part in the calculator. If you do that and work it out, you're going to get 25. Then I would type this part in the calculator. If you do that, you're going to get 81. Then I would add 25 and 81. And if you do that, that's going to give you 106. And that's the distance between them. Now, if it wants an estimate, you would type that in on the calculator and you would get approximately, that's what that symbol means, 10 point something. I don't have my calculator, but that's how you would do that problem. Okay, what about down here about the midpoint? Okay, it says use the number line to find the coordinate of the midpoint of each segment. So let's take the segment AC. So from A to C. So the midpoint. Really all you need to do here is count. So if you count, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. So the midpoint would be where? Right in the middle. So I go 1, 2, 3. There's the midpoint. Okay. And it says find the coordinate. So where is that? Well, if you look, every dash mark is 3, so that would be at -3. So the midpoint of AC would be at -3. Those are a little bit trickier. What about if you're finding the midpoint of 2 points? So let's take this one. Remember, midpoint is nothing but average. So all you do is you have to find the coordinates for both the x and y. So I do the x's first, and I'm going to do these in red. 7 plus 4 divided by 2. So that's 11 over 2. So there's my x value. Now I'm going to do the y value in blue. So 1 plus -1 divided by 2. If I do that, that's 0 divided by 2, which is 0. So the coordinate of the midpoint becomes this right here. Now again, you could change that 11 over 2 to a decimal if you wanted to. Then we have another problem here, and I like these. One thing I would suggest you do is learn to count. Okay, so I'm going to take problem number 11 here first. It says find the coordinates of G if F is, so one thing I want to do is read the rest of it. F is this coordinate, is the midpoint of GH. So I'm going to draw a segment that is GJ, sorry. Okay, and I know J is at 6, -2. F is the midpoint, so I put it in the middle. It has coordinates 1 and 3.5. And it's asking me to find G. Now, I'm going to do this a lot differently than the book teaches. All I'm going to do here is count. So how far is it from 6 to 1? Well, I have to go down 5. So what do I have to do here? The exact same thing. I go down 5. So what's 1 minus 5? That takes me to -4. Do the same thing here with the y. -2 to 3.5. I went up 5.5 to get there. So what do I have to do? The same thing. I go up 5.5. So if I do 3.5 plus 5.5, then that's going to take me to 9. And then that becomes the coordinate of G. So you could do something similar with this other problem. So I'm going to do it real quick. 9 to 6, what did you do? You went down 3. So I go down 3 here. If I go down 3, 6 minus 3 is 3. Let's do the y's. 2 to 4, I went up 2. So what I have to do here, I also must go up 2. What's 4 plus 2? 4 plus 2 is 6. And that becomes the coordinates of C.